to humans about hate and war and violence and destruction and whatever Trump and Netanyahu and Putin have done lately. So it's going well, and we I so badly want to out Pup because Pup is here in his alias, but we love Pup just to get that in. But and he's a great example of someone who really does try with people with different views. He's really good at it, at not getting too aggravated with people, though. Occasionally he will be like, Alex, for God's sake, shut that fucker up. But most of the time he's extremely tolerant of different views. And I in this October 2025 environmentalism, that's kind of my main message. We've got to be accepting of these other kinds of environmentalism, not do the knee-jerk, no, you're wrong. I lump you in, Robert, with me with the the climate environmental justice. I see Warren. I would say he's really into the. I mean, Warren is such a legitimate environmentalist. There's no question in my mind. But I would sort of lump him in with the deep ecology people who really don't want to be lumped in anywhere. But I would do that, and we all have to be acceptant. The people I start labeling as progressive politically, and they start complaining about the establishment and the politics. It gets so complicated. We with the if we agree on the Gandhi thing, the Gandhi King Mandela thing, the Thoreau, that we're going to do this nonviolently. It's going to be a nonviolent expression to get these goals done. That involves working with the systems in place, the corporations and governments that are here today. If we're not going to declare war on them and blow them all up, we've got to work with them. We're not going to dismantle them. They're in place. The UK, the United States, Microsoft, Apple are in place, and we have to work with them. So many on the extreme progressive left just want to kind of deny their existence, as do many in deep ecology. So it is these issues from the environmental justice point of view, Robert, that I see as our critical tactical points today.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
A few comments on that 5% that's recognized as indigenous in this world. I think all environmentalists would agree that they are critical. We've discussed over and over how many land protectors are literally killed each year, particularly in Mexico. And I think we've also covered that topic just so intensely. I get this new feeling these days that like everybody here's a specialist. T. Rupp there has been following all of us, Robert, for years. He knows everything we got to say. Like I think at some point everybody knows what we've got to say on human rights, on environmentalism. I know when I listen to speakers like Dr. Mann, I've heard everything Dr. Mann has to say. I'm looking for new wrinkles. Some new idea in his presentation.
Well, Alex, if you want some insight for I don't know if you got your environmentalists from Timu or Wish, I am here, my friend.
Yeah,
okay?
We know. Absolutely, Nate. We're with you, brother. We love your brand of environmentalism.
I love it, man. He backed into it. I think really Pup backed into our brand of environmentalism.
Yeah, doesn't he? Yeah, I love Pup's brand of environmentalism.
Yeah, to back into it because that they enjoy our company and they back into our environmentalism and they find themselves look like a fish.
I just thinking, Alex, about Pup being Pup. There is not another person that could ever be, or ever replace, or ever try to be Pup. He is an absolutely unique individual.
He is a force of nature. He's the one person in our social circles that I actually respect. I give him all the benefits of the doubt. He can say whatever he wants, no matter how aggravated I start getting or concerned of all the people leaving the space.
Yeah.
He's earned it.
He certainly is. You're not wrong about that at all. Yeah, some great words there from you, Alex, and thanks for accepting. Thanks for joining me as co-host here.
I love being co-host. That's my favorite. You get all the glory and no responsibility.
Yeah, you're not wrong, are you? Actually, that's it. We're just sort of we'll wither in browbeaten little old me into the hosting chair for the foreseeable with this room space, and just we'll wing it, as they say.
Absolutely. Well, you love to jazz, man. What is jazz but winging it?
You're not wrong, actually. I've spent so many decades with my ears stuck to the proverbial jazz notes. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's
I took the history of jazz at Columbia College. I took the history of jazz. Yeah. After class, I would talk to the teacher about rock music. I grew up in New York City, which is a great center of jazz. And I got my friend Rick. He's a super professional jazz pianist. He goes around the world noodling and doing the jazz thing. I've always loved it. And normally it puts me in a good, relaxed mood. Music is a climate solution, and it is something that all of these brands, for years I've been looking at what all the brands of environmentalists do agree on. We got music, cooking, gardening, pets. There are a handful of things we do all agree on. I got that idea, Robert, from Grok, and Grok gives you 12 types of environmentalists. I don't know, where in the programming that came from, but I think it's
we're just thinking. Sorry, carry on, brother. You're going to say something.
A good starting point for conversation is the 12 types of environmentalists.
That's right.
I know Dale's thinking of the 12 types of apostles. Probably Nate is too by now, and condemning them all.
You're probably right about that. But counting them up now. No, I was just thinking of something, Alice. Make you laugh here. It's was that different environmentalist thing. Do you remember I DM'd you and you said you asked me what environmentalist out of those 12 I think I just said all of them. Because that's how I felt about it. I couldn't brand myself. I couldn't put myself in one pocket of environmentalists because I was doing the old damn thing. I was doing the old show. I thought, well, gotta be honest here. I'm every single one.
That's what Sandy. It is what Sandy says, right? Sandy says she does the umbrella, so she does it all.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's a holistic type, the Gasol theory of all of it. And you are. I know your mind a bit, Robert. You unlike me, I'm always looking for us versus them, and let's go destroy them. Your mind is more that non-duality of the whole group of people, community, and you're very strong on that.
Yeah, so you're right about that, because I tell you why, Alex, because I think I said to you it was sort of about the roundabout way of describing it earlier when we were talking about something on DM. And I said, well, the thing is, I honestly see it like this, that every single person that I meet who is environmentally or climate or democracy or human rights concerned, even the slightest bit, I respect the person for who they are and how they operate in their mind and the way that they do things, because everyone in this fight is welcome for who you are and how you see these things in your own unique way. Because the thing is, we're all different here. And everyone who's listening out of the room and on this entire X platform that's interested in environmental and climate matters, we're all different. We all have a special place and a special way of seeing everything and acting and doing and being. And that is why all of us are unique with our own special talents. And it's why I've said this so many times in the Climate Crisis Club, actually. We all have the ability to be able to do things in our own unique and special ways. And we've all got the understanding to be able to create magic. However much magic we want to create is entirely up to us at the end of the day. But I think we've all got this ability to have this incredible, how can I put this again? the ability to take on board what is going on in our own world and the greater picture of things across the board. And I think, we gain when we learn. And when we learn from each other, because we listen to each other, we respect each other, we treat each other as equal citizens as people. We treat each other like decent human beings with humanity. I think if we can continue to do that, not just as individual, unique, special people in these room spaces, but I think also configuratively across the board, because every single one of you here, every new person or new face that you meet on these digital platforms, just remember, even if sometimes you might be weary or you might be tired of it all, or you might forget, to treat somebody with respect, with honesty, with decency, with humility, with humaneness, just always reach your hand out with that extra mile of friendship, because I promise you, it is to the greater good. And at the end of the day, to be able to do that. Friendship is key, understanding is key, but also empathy and sincerity are also key issues here. I talk to a lot of people across the board in the course of my work, and I feel very blessed. I really do mean that, extremely blessed to have the different types of people. And so you were going to say something, were you, Alex? And I could have thought you might.
I'm getting into it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the sincerity. It's again, it's so simple, Robert. We all met here on the social media.
Yeah.
We're all environmentalists. We all want to work on improving, the global situation. It's just terribly simple. Our formula really has been very successful, and it is social media, and we do get into these social issues.
Yeah.
And environmentalists, as a group, generally speaking, are not very strong socially. So it's sort of a catch-22 of a type.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why we can't have an environmentalist party. There's absolutely no reason why we can't do this within the social media format, and we are doing it essentially. It is being human. I think I'm trying to remember who was saying it. It was Andrea last week that, and in the early days of our climate club, we did pretty quickly realize that people had nobody to talk to in the physical world about what they thought and believed in, protecting animals and trees and fish, getting rivers clean, let alone as a river alive, let alone that, but just getting the river clean. And Andrea says that people just don't understand her at all in Singapore. They don't, and so it's just helpful to come on here and find like-minded people who really do understand. We understand the love of nature, the desire to see it protected and allowed to thrive as really, really important. So all the billions of permutations around the simplicity of the issue, the simplicity of society, then again, like an organic system, the complexities arise all around that. And then we get into the emotional soap operas, and I think we have to accept they're just going to keep happening. We're not going to have a completely harmonious coexistence. We're going to just start fighting over which kind of tree is superior again. That's just going to happen. That's being human, and being, that's just going to happen. And I do feel with many of you a family kind of thing, a comfort of being able to get into these serious intellectual debates and just arguments, and then to recuperate and say, well, that was fun, and then just sort of, I think it's part of the council fire thing too, where the community, the elders, work out the issues until they get to consensus, unanimous consensus. I I am a little older than you, Robert. There's just that slight age difference. Oliver and I are about 2-3 years apart, hitting the old age, starting to knock on the door and feel it and get a feeling for it. And as I'm about 2 months away from being Gen X, and I have a Gen X sister. I mean, I don't know if I feel like I'm 1/3 Gen X. I don't know if that's possible. But
possibly.
one of my missions I do see is like mothering Gen X right into senior citizenship.
Yeah.
I think this could be terribly important in the grand scheme of things, because I do see the boomers, and I love boomers. Don't get me wrong, as much as I wail on them, because Gen X does wail on boomers. Okay, boomer. But the boomers have the keys to the car right now. They've got 70% of the wealth in America, a corresponding amount of power, and we're living in a boomer dominated world right now. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's been for hundreds of years, for sure. The seniors dominate the politics and the way life is. They dictate it. But then 15 years from now, it will be Gen X's time. And I see that the long-term project as a big deal. How those keys are handed over. And it's the whole Gen X story, being post-boomer. Taking in the boomer content and then refining it and doing it better. It's so Gen X. And then Chrissy will tell me these classes don't exist after I go study it with her super advanced sociology. So that's another story. But so we have the environmentalists, Robert. We have those that are environmentally adjacent. It might not be number one on their list, but 2 or 3 or 4. They do really care, but they care about Ukraine or pro-vax or some such more. And that's fine. What Plato said, if we were all philosophers, this world would be a mess. If we were all environmentalists, this world would be a mess. Different people have to cover different aspects. So we've done such a great job so far. I think Kim and Ollie are both here. I think they both would think, just really be quite stunned that we got anywhere. I would be quite happy still talking with them and 2 or 3 others, and having our little huddle on an excited huddle on climate environmentalism. I would still be quite happy with our original format, but it's grown like heck. And Kim is here. I don't know about you, Robert. I speak fine with the English guys. I know what you're talking about. I understand you and Ollie. The Canadians, I'm pretty sure they got this Canadian language that I don't speak well at all. I do know that hockey season is it's what do we have now? We have 4 days. This is critical, Robert. When talking with Canadians, is knowing when hockey season is, giving respect to the maple syrup. And then we talk about the tragically hip. That's a critical part of the religion. So I do love Canadians. Don't get me wrong.
Your teasing extremities are warmly welcomed on that occasion. Some great words there, actually, from you, Alex. It is indeed, to my mind, everyone, as I've said so many times, not just in my own room spaces, but in the Climate Crisis Club Saturday live space. I've said so many times before, we've got incredibly talented and gifted people with very dedicated and fertile minds in their ability to do remarkable things. And I know that is a process which has longevity attached to it, which is we're blessed to have that. It is wonderful when you get to know people extremely well, as I've been blessed to do with Oliver, indeed, yourself, Alex, Nate, Neferes, Dale, going south, Vidal, Judith, Kim, of course. And it has been a wonderful learning curve, actually, to be able to participate in the creativity and indeed the dedication of all of you in the way that you've brought dynamic, intent, understanding, knowledge, education, and unity to these digital platforms, or utopias, as I like to call them, because they're communicative efforts and they're so warmly welcomed at every level. We continue to I think, shape the very ways of which we can talk to each other for the right reasons. Well, I take a pause, and I want to welcome you, Kim, to the microphone. Thanks for joining me in the room, Kim. It is great to have your presence here. Thank you for taking the time. What would you like to share with us, Kim? Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Robert and Alex and everyone. Wonderful
Kim.
to be here
Thank
in this great space. You know, I love it when you guys start talking because I can see the smiles on your faces, and then I'm like, oh, I've got to join in. I got to be a part of this. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
that I could hear your smiles, which is very nice. You know, well, Alex was talking about the boomers and that and Gen X, and he felt like he's more Gen X. But I mean, I think, you know, since boomers starts in, I believe, in 1945 and goes to like 1964, I mean, I think there's a big difference between someone born in 1945 as opposed to someone born in the 60s, right? So
Yes,
I don't think it's like a hard rule. You're probably way more Gen X, if that helps, than you are boomer. Also, I think, you know, I think there is some meaning to the different chronological age groupings, because I remember reading a book called Boom, Bust, and Echo, and I can't for the life of me remember the person who wrote it. I believe he was an economist. He's Canadian. He's from U of T. And, you know, it's very much has been that way, that the boomers had the boom. They've got the money. The bust would be Gen X, and that's basically, yeah, that explains a lot. And then the echo, which I guess is the millennial and probably Gen Z. I'm gonna speak some Canadian there. Z, I guess it's English as well. But yeah, I mean, I think there is some meaning in those categories, and just, you know, the year that you were born has a lot to do with what your economic and social outcomes, what you're limited by, right? But I remember Alex was talking about deep ecology and environmental justice. And as some of you know, I've been reading the book Here Comes the Sun by Bill McKibben. And you know, he talks about, and I think he's, you know, a great environmentalist, but I think he really cares about social justice as well. And I think he would see them as being hand in hand. And I think he says something to the effect in this book that, you know, there really won't be any social justice if we don't do something about the climate crisis. Um, you know, injustices happen because we have different access to resources. And that's, you know, part of what pay equity and, you know, college quotas and all that was supposed to do, was to fix this injustice, which was systemic in nature, and help people who are very disadvantaged because of the system, right? Because of racism, because of sexism. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think the setup that we have right now, it's not really about if one person can get through or one person of a certain group can be successful or a handful of them. It's more about making the system work for everybody in an equal manner, that everyone can live with dignity. Everyone can grow food, have their own food. Everyone has a chance to be in nature, because a lot of people don't have that, and I think that that's a shame. That that takes away their humanity, because we are a part of nature, and if you just live in a concrete jungle and the only food you could buy is frozen food or fast food, and you don't get to interact with nature, you're you're a prisoner of civilization, of of mechanization, of technology, really. I mean, you're just so far removed from who you are. It's got to do something to your brain. I definitely think it does something to the soul. I've kind of rambled and I've wondered, and I was trying to think of how I could wrap this up. So feel free to interrupt me. But yeah, I mean, about the Canadian stuff, you're right on. I mean, of course, yes, maple syrup almost daily. I also like ketchup. Yeah, hockey season's coming, and that's, something that we all grow up with, right? Like you watch hockey games. That's what you do. So yeah, I can't remember what. Oh, and Tragically Hip. Yeah, I definitely one of my favorite bands. Probably a lot of people haven't even heard of them, but they've got tons of great songs. So okay, Alex, there you go.
Very
Thank you.
good. Yeah, and Kim, you influence people, you affect people. You're I think you occasionally need some applause and cheerleading that you're doing a great job. Some of the rest of us don't really need the applause, but you really do it. You change the way people look at stuff, and you certainly care 100% about nature. And that little comment there, that it is sort of sad, all those people who just aren't aware of nature in their day-to-day life. They don't feel it. They're alienated from it, and it is a tremendous problem. I'm delighted Robert that Going South is here with his hand up and his unique take as well, Norwegian, Greenland, etc. So yeah.
I'm just to elaborate on that. So wonderful points there from you, Kim. I can't think of how they could have been put any better than that. Absolutely brilliant. I was thinking about what you were saying about the fact that I think alienated was a word that came into play there. There was a lot of content there, and my brain was attentively trying to listen to every bit there. We are, I think, as people, I think it is, as you said, Kim, one of the great tragedies, I think. If we are locked in or alienated away from nature, if I can put it like that, because I see it all around me. I see, even though this is a town situation where I am in Telford in Shropshire, which Telford is actually not that far away from Birmingham. It is probably about 35 miles from the centre of Birmingham. And I'm probably about 20 miles away from Wolverhampton, which is indeed probably about 20 minutes away from Birmingham. So I'm just thinking about all of us that live in intensely built up concreted areas. I think you were making reference to that, Kim, with the fact that so many of us are deprived, mentally deprived and spiritually deprived, if I can put it like that. Bear with me, Going South. We'll get you on the microphone in a minute, my friend. Just want to try to get my brain to recall these vital points that Kim has brought, quite a few of them here, into the room, of which I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to. I think we do need to be able to build on our ability as people, as individual human beings in our communities. We have to build on the ability to be able to give not just our children, but ourselves, that ability to be able to feel, touch, nurture, smell nature. Because I'm blessed. I've always been lucky enough to have nature around me in abundance, and I continue to have it when I want to go into the depths of nature. I can do in the most wonderful nature reserve. I have only quite at my disposal up in the Telford Town Park area, which covers many, many acres of nature reserve, which is a wonderful place to be when you want to really be at one with nature, listening to the bird song, which I do on many occasions. And I think I've shared a good few photographs actually of that, but I've got a lot more. As indeed, I kind of think about how wonderful it is when you're listening to crows talking to each other, when you're watching copious amounts of magpies, as I do, and I have done on many occasions, simply dancing around on the grass. Magpies, loads of them, dozens of them, just looking at each other. And just, I know that they're communicating with each other in their own language. You see, not everyone who is not environmentally minded, they won't take the time to realize that birds have their own unique language of communication. They always have and they always will. Birds actively talk to each other, and birds actually talk to nature as well as that. They communicate. Birds don't actually realize, I don't think, that a lot of people do not take the time to understand that. Of course they don't, because they are part of that precious cycle of nature, of which I realize is so absolutely apparent to the wondrous and intensity and the beautifulness of what nature's carpet of bounty truly gives us on this earth and continues to do so. It's why
Robert,
whenever
Robert, it
yeah,
sounds like you are
no.
painfully unaware of the birds aren't real conspiracy.
Painfully unaware of so many dexterous individual events, my friend. Too numerous that I
So
could barely
Robert,
share
it's
them.
the conspiracy. It's a joke, by the way. The people
I
that came
know,
up with it
I know,
did it
yeah.
to parody. For those that don't know about this, it's the silly idea that like since like the early 1900s, the world government slowly replaced all the real birds with androids. So when you see a bird up on a wire, it's recharging. Isn't that neat? I didn't,
Well,
I
that's
didn't
so
know
right,
that
or what, brother?
before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Robert. You were saying something perfectly serious, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna interrupt him and make it funny.
No,
Sorry about that,
actually, I
Robert.
really. You're right. You're okay, no, brother, because I actually appreciated that humor coming into play there because I found it immensely entertaining, Nate. So I do thank you for that sincerely. Never feel that you don't need to interrupt with some humor when you just have an old codger like me talking about nature in its entirety.
The owls are not what they seem.
Nicely said. I know this is the thing, you see, and Oliver, I tell you, brother, I feel like an owl, sitting perched perilously, watching the dexterous beauty of nature, from my own perch, thinking about those precious moments, indeed, that you see bird call, bird song. But I was also thinking about the fact that I can't help but share my observations in nature because it's the one place, indeed, when I'm out in nature where I feel totally at one with the surroundings of which I'm. And I know all of us do feel like that. Well, I hope we do. Otherwise, we would indeed be a work in progress on the nature front anyway. But I think, kind of thinking about another situation that I experienced a few days ago, last week, when I was watching a couple of hawks actually, because I was identifying these birds. And I thought I had a look at them, and I know that my geographical area, they weren't eagles. And I knew they weren't peregrines, and I certainly knew that they weren't, I think they could well have been sparrowhawks, actually, judging by the size and weight of the birds. But there was a couple of them. They were actually circling the thermals, of which I'm sure you all know that indeed birds of that category do. And I was watching just two of them very gently swooping and circling and lowering and going a bit higher and then doing the same process again. And I was kind of thinking, now that is nature's bounty and abundance with beauty that has no attachments of detriment to it at all. It is simply two incredibly beautiful creatures that are going about nature's precious cycle. And I was kind of thinking to myself that whenever I experience whatever varieties or species of bird are doing what they will around me in nature's usual natural cycle of events, I'm kind of thinking of the wondrousness of it all and the way that it is so brilliant to be able to detach the mind from toxicity of so many toxic species that fail to be able to realize the very special and the most important qualities of nature that are given. My randomly roaming statements here, I guess, really are to do with part and parcel of to actually framework, really. Kim's point of nature is immensely precious, and yet there are so many people that are missing out on it fundamentally, hands down, for all the wrong reasons. I think we can
Robert,
give more. Yeah, Nate. Oh,
Robert,
going south. Yeah, sorry,
I
I
was
thought
just,
I was listening to the
I
wrong
was just
microphone.
going to hitch on
Yeah.
your magpie story.
Oh, please do, brother.
No,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
in his younger years, my old man he would not be so old. And he would have a dog, a puppy, and also a magpie, always the same magpie, week after week, right? And magpies are very clever birds, very smart birds. So this magpie was very quick to pick up on the fact that the dog had a liking for fetching sticks, like every dog ever. So the magpie, I guess, had watched my dad throwing a stick and the dog fetching it. So he just took over that whole enterprise, right? Like a mafia don in New York or whatever. So he just would fly away with the stick and drop it, and the dog would pick it up, and then he would fly and drop it again. So they were sort of self-contained, those two little pets, and it's kind of fabulous that they can do like the song "Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves." Animals can do it for themselves as well, right? So that was just that, and then I wanted to credit Kim with her fantastic comment, and I think about about social justice or environmental justice, no, social justice. That wouldn't really be a thing if the rest of the world collapses. And so I thought, because I'm a writer, I'm a wordsmith, I've been a poet, I've been stand-up poet in cafes in Stockholm and Oslo, that kind of stuff. And so I'm thinking, how about that being social justice? How about the world collapsing because every human is only interested in other humans and classifying them and talking about them, bad mouthing them, warring with them, being in constant strife and drama with other humans. It's all they ever care about, from my perspective anyway. And how about going.
Did we lose going south?
We have. I thought it was my connection, Alex, but it isn't. I think we have lost going south.
Rotating.
If you can hear me going south, let's drop you down, brother. Yeah, we'll bring you back
Yeah,
up
we'll bring
in a
yeah.
minute.
I was feeling inspired, Robert. We never talk about collapse and post collapse, and I was feeling, I was enjoying what Going South was telling us. I was thinking of getting into, for once, to what collapse could look like and how it might go. But my comment was going to be that from hunter gatherers, the way all of us were for 190,000 years or more, or now, from hunter gatherers to building up more complex societies, that these rules and borders and artificial things start making their appearances, and people do tie it to the level of population. So if you have 60 or 70 people, a hunter gatherer type society is a very efficient organization. And when you get up to 10,000, but let's get back to going south.
Yeah, we will. Going south, let's hope we have a connection for you, brother, that lasts. Microphone is yours, going south. What would you like to continue sharing?
It was just a DoorDash. Somebody delivered something on the door. So don't really know where I cut off. But I was basically just tying the knots back to Kim and saying that how about going into collapse with the climate situation and into the bottleneck, where our population will finally be put in check. How about that being kind of a social justice in the sense of poetic justice, right? So we've all been just preoccupied with each other, ignoring the rest of the creation. And maybe that is the only justice we will get, like Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they're smacked in the face, right? So I'm kind of thinking of it like that. And I also heard people say about, if you put a word before justice, environmental justice, climate justice, social justice, then it's no longer justice, it's something else. But I think in a poetic justice kind of way, I think that is kind of what we deserve, because we have been ignoring the rest of creation for like at least 10,000 years, I think, since agriculture, and it's kind of time to go back until the roots. We've been around as human beings for 1,000,000 years. There've been advanced civilizations before the Ice Age. It's all coming up now, and everything keeps getting older. We find new archaeological remains in America that tells us we've been here for, I say here because I'm in North America, right? I'm on Turtle Island. So we've been here for like hundreds of thousands of years. We didn't come over the Bering Strait. Some people came over there, but they were sort of late to the party. So that's my comment for today. Thank you.
Thanks indeed, Going South. I do appreciate that. Sorry, Alex, did you want to say something, brother?
Yeah, a couple comments. The environmental justice, climate justice, people do identify that. And it doesn't need to have the wordplay stuff with it. That is their identity. One could do the same thing to deep ecology and start talking about shallow ecology, and you know, some things in identity we have to let be and not do the wordplay. It even, you know, if it's true or not true, people's identities, they need that respect.
Yeah.
The question though of collapse and government structure, social formation, if you have the total collapse, you know, within 100 years, say the population goes to 1 billion, the earth starts healing, people start recuperating, they build a technological society all over again. And pretty soon you have 6 billion people and they're cutting down all the trees again 10,000 years from now. It occurs to me the old Nietzsche theme of eternal recurrence. We don't want that happening either. It's no good to have cycles of this technological collapse, which is exactly what human beings would do if given the chance. The 6 billion people would die. We'd have the collapse that the collapse people talk about. And then after a time, there would be a rebuilding. And they get back to the technological society, build the nuclear weapons, cut down all the trees, kill all the whales again, and collapse again. So I haven't heard this theory of collapse of like perpetual collapse over and over and over again. But that's got to be stopped as well, because that's exactly what people would do if left to their own devices. Just totally edging the story of whether collapse is going to happen in the future or not, but just rolling with that. We can't have recurring collapse either, because that's exactly what people would do over tens of thousands of years. They would keep rebuilding the technological society from the road warrior style destruction, and then destroy it again. You know.
Yeah, it's a reoccurring collapse. It is something, Alex, a very great point there of yours brought up. And indeed, I would like to explore that with as many voices as possible, because it's part and parcel of what I call a cycle of revolution more than evolution, because to recur a collapse means not to have learned anything from the past collapse of which was endured. And indeed, to me, to my mind, the human species has suffered enough at the hands of making catastrophically wrong decisions, indeed, for pure profit of the most, indeed, insidious kind across our earth in so many, what I would call, every area geographically that can be made catastrophic decisions that are totally detrimental to the environment, the climate, and ecological systems and boundaries. You can bet your bottom dollar that the human species has nailed that ability to the destructive measure in its entirety. Having said that, I'm taking a pause. Kim, I want to welcome you back on the microphone. It's great to have you back with the microphone. Kim, what would you like to share with us?
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Going South, and Alex, for your contributions. I mean, I think there is a cycle of ecological collapse, and when the environment collapses, the civilization that it's tied to also collapses. I mean, the Roman civilization, the Greek civilization, the Mayan civilization, they all collapsed, and now our civilization is a global civilization. Will it collapse? I hope not. But I think segments of it might. Um, I think we put things into categories such as environmental justice, social justice, other types of justice, is because it helps us to understand it better. When we talk about, environmental racism, environmental justice, we're tying it to where people live and what's going on there, such as Cancer Alley in Louisiana. They put, the oil processing and the chemical industries in red line districts that were disproportionately areas of people of color where they live, right? Like 70-80% African Americans. That's where they were putting them, and they weren't putting other types of social investments there. So we can understand that, we have to change that environment for those people to receive justice. At least that's the way I think of it. But I was thinking about, Alex had said earlier in the conversation about Andrea saying that, it's nice for us to come together because it's hard to find people to talk to about these issues. And I've tried to figure out why that is, but I think one of the reasons is because most people are getting their information from mainstream media, right? And they've heard the same disinformation year after year. So when you try to reach out to them and, talk about, let's say, the floods in North Carolina, and that they're getting worse and more extreme because of climate change, and they reply to you that, oh no, there was one 10 years ago, and there was another one 10 years before that, and so on, it sort of shuts down the conversation, and it doesn't really allow it for much depth. So I think, I don't know if that's just being a human being, or if it's a way to defend ourselves from really confronting what they call the climate emergency, right? That we have to first of all have an awareness of it, then we have to start accepting it, that this is real. It's not pretty. You have to change. I don't think, probably only maybe 20% of people have done that. Another thing is that I thought about, and I wonder what other people think about it, is many of us live in urban environments, especially in North America. I think 80% of the Canadian population lives within an hour's drive of the U.S. border. We mainly live around big cities. Hopefully we do have access to nature, but as this is my worry, as we become more urbanized, we are also, we're going to have a different relationship with nature, and it's mainly one of, it is secondary to us, that is in service to us. And I don't think that's really going to help for the future of biodiversity, or for human survivability. I was looking at a study where they said nature-related words such as river or blossoms and stuff like that were in the decline, and the study looked at school textbooks over the last, I think it was 50 years. And they said that these nature related words, or words about nature, had declined by 60%. And they're taking nature words out of the dictionary. So I wonder, to me, it seems, I get that we might need to have more urbanization, but I don't think it's a very good solution, because I think we're going to become even more detached from nature. So I'm wondering what other people think about that. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Kim. Some wonderful points again from you. Thank you so much for coming back to the microphone, Kim. Superb in what you're thinking. And I'm completely at one with you, Kim, and your views there. I really sincerely am. I say that sincerely because every point there, I'm making a mental note of it, Kim, that I make sure that I bring the prominence of what your discussion is, because these things do need to be fundamentally said to all the most widest of audiences, even audiences that even myself I'm failing at the moment to be able to capture and get. Simply because, as you know yourself, Kim, whenever us environmentalists talk about the state station of collapse, which is blanket covering our planet, there are so many people that have got this relaxed, I couldn't care less attitude mode attached to them for all the reasons, as we undoubtedly know, that I've had to go over and cherry pick at length as I continue to do. Indeed, I think it is absolutely appalling. And that word is not strong enough, Kim, to say how can I put this with the vocal words I need? My and dismay, and a lot more besides, to think that words to do with nature that are what I would call a fundamental embodiment of learning principles that should be steadfast and there, not just for now, but for generations of children to come, should be eroded to the extent, should be diminished in their gravitas, in their content, in their literate meaning, if I can put it out like that, diminished, as you so brilliantly put there, Kim, diminished out of publications, out of teaching methods, out of teaching in the classrooms, and indeed, as I just stated, out of publications, obviously on an ever-growing large scale, words that have been the fundamental embodiment of nature and the principles, indeed, of nature at all levels, eroded and what I call dumbed down, are two words think which are relevant in the discussion of describing this, what I can only put into words as an abandonment of responsibility for keeping alive the absolute necessity of everything to do with nature, what it is, why it is, and the words that have been freely available, indeed, since so basically, the beginning of how we describe nature as an ongoing, what I would call a learning species of human beings on this earth. Having said that, I have a lot more to say about it. Some brilliant stuff there from you, Kim. I hope you can come back to the microphone in a bit. As we continue this conversation, which is a superb one in the room tonight on a Friday, I must add, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And we do have I think actually it was going south, and then Oliver, correct me if I'm wrong, no, please, because my mind might have played. Thank you for the thumbs up, Oliver and Alex. Appreciated, as my mind might have reduced its ability to function under the usual circumstances. Going south, what would you like to share with us, brother? It's good to have you.
Yes, thank you. I just had to come back to the mic
Excellent,
because I forgot because of the DoorDash, which
okay.
blocked
Yeah.
my sound signal.
Okay.
So, do you hear me?
Yes, I do. Going south, all good. I
Okay,
can
okay.
hear you crystal
Yeah.
clear.
No,
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I had to come back to say what I was going to say initially, and that is that
Yeah.
I am experimenting with hosting to Rumble and YouTube, and then I'm using this stream, the audio from this stream, and we also have live text chat on YouTube and Rumble if you want to, express yourselves in the written form. It's an experiment. If some of the hosts are very, very much against it, I can stop it immediately. But I just thought I would inform you that I'm doing that as an experiment to see how that will work for my usual Wednesday spaces. So thank you.
Thanks indeed, Going South. We appreciate that content, and indeed for mentioning it, bringing it up in the room space, brother. Message received, as it were, and I do hope it works extremely well for you and can be adaptive on an ongoing basis. Going South for all the right reasons, hopefully to bloom and flourish. In its capacities. Bear with me, Dale. We will get to you very shortly. Before I hand the microphone over to you, Oliver, bear with me in a second, brother. We'll be with you. I want to give a big shout out of appreciation to others who I might not have mentioned yet, because it has been a very lively and brilliant conversation. Annette, it's great to see you, my brilliant friend over there, and indeed your Danish homeland. Thank you, Annette, for joining us. Wonderful to see you. Indeed, Julian, and that lovely green circle with the V Vidal. It's great to see you, brother. I hope you're keeping safe and well. Thank you indeed. And indeed, likewise, Julian. I hope you are safe and well, brother. It is wonderful to see you. As a Bluey, of course, and I have mentioned T-Rup, I think, and others who've joined me. As we continue this odyssey of conversation, as I like to put it, this what I call a delving into the things that must be shared and said on a global platform basis. Environmental, yes. Democracy, yes. Human rights, yes, at its very core, because human rights is the thread that is in the balance consecutively, globally, from country to country across our planet. And human rights covers absolutely everything. I continue to want to champion everything with everything to do with human rights, whether it be human rights for a man, for a woman, for a child, for any race, gender, sex, or class. Human rights is at the very core an embodiment of bringing balance, what I call understanding, and indeed the complete unilateral unity for every single human being, no matter who you are or where you are from on this planet. It is vital. Having said that, I'm taking a pause. We get to the hands. Oliver, thanks for being patient, brother. It's great to have you on microphone. What would you like to share with us?
Oh, thanks, Robert. It's good to be here, and
Thanks, Oliver.
good to see on the space. I'm struck this evening by how many of the discussions are actually revolving around tweets and posts that are appearing just this evening. It's very interesting to see so many different things coming out. First of all, the thing about the boomers, Alex Kim particularly brought that up, is very interesting, because that also has been featuring quite heavily on other blogs and so on. It was on Andrea's this morning, which I didn't get live. I had to listen to the recording. But she has two money men on there, two economists, and they are really sharp on the whole money effect on society, on generations. And yes, the boomers were very smart about keeping all the money for themselves. They were very clever at it. And one of the comments that was particularly pertinent was from David Coe, who is, yes, an economist and also an environmentalist and an activist as well. And his the thrust of his,
and a physicist, Oliver.
And he's a physicist as well, of course. Yeah, the thrust of his discussion about the boomers was that they were basically storing up the cash for themselves in their old age, and so they were extending life for themselves, and they were actually depriving this money from the generations after. So there is a real, as we know, a real knock-on effect. But he expressed it very, very clearly and very well. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. That's good. I agree with everything you're saying. And I wonder, we're having a discussion about the different generations within generations. So Alex is considers himself is it Gen X, I think? I'm not sure. I am supposedly firmly boomer, but I do have a lot of the sympathies for younger generations, for example. But it's very clear that a lot of the older folk are very entrenched in looking after themselves, and they don't really they're not really looking over their shoulders at what's happening in the world in nearly quite so fulsome a manner as the generations coming after them. And they are holding all the fucking money. I mean, it is not right to put it bluntly, you know. And you can't just shut
No.
the sweetie shop behind you, lock it, and swallow the key and say we're staying in here for the rest of eternity. That's not how it works. So
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But that was one.
Yeah.
That was the boomer thing. I thought was very interesting. The other thing was the plastics thing. I mean, Kim put out a couple of things on plastics, and somebody else was putting out stuff on plastics as well. I think Lyle actually, who's a real collapse guy, and there are other collapse guys I was sort of conversing with or tweeting with, who I have to agree with. You know, the baked in stuff is going to kill us, but at the same time, innocents like myself will keep going with not so much the hope, but the working to try and get some alleviation from it in order to head off some of the worst things that are going to obviously happen. But the plastics things was fascinating because the remedy is so fucking easy. You just go out there with ships and you clear the stuff up and you take it to land and you stash it, store it, hold it there until willingly tech comes along and finds ways of dealing with it better. And even, I mean, the weird thing about the plastic was my wife got some crisps and she liked these crisps a lot, and I got her some more, and the new packet had 25% recycled plastic, and she could taste the plastic. I swear she could taste the plastic in the crisps, and she said these are not the same.
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, I'm learning here. Not only is it plastic just terrible for all this stuff, you know, but we remember going back in time, crisps and so on crisps and chips and so on were actually packaged in a kind of paper with a very, very slight kind of waxy effect to it, and sometimes not even that, but a very, very, very much more simple kind of packaging. And I thought, yes, and that's the other thing. We're all learning from each other all the time in these different communities that we have, be they online communities or our own families or our own people we know around us. We are still all learning all the time, and there is progress being made. So I thought, you know, this is all swirling around. It's swirling around on here. It's swirling around on Twitter, which is. It seems like Twitter's mostly all we've got, really. I mean, not completely, but you know what I mean. Twitter seems to be the place that it works in best, even though it's a shitstorm for so much of the time. We seem to get by, don't we, on Twitter for some reason? It's funny that. And yet we know that we're going to extend this to other areas and keep extending it because it has to go out there as much as possible. So I just thought that was a really interesting kind of evening, and then coming on here and it's like reflected here as well. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Oliver. Some wonderful stuff there from you. I will say that I'm absolutely at one with you also, Oliver, as indeed I was with Kimber. Oliver, your points there, quite a lot, and my brain, as I said, fertile in its dexterity, trying to make sure that I lock on to the points that were made there because they're vital importance. That bit about the crisps, Oliver, yeah, indeed. I do remember actually as a child the fact that there were crisps in packs which did have that waxy papery feel, which of course are long gone from the shelves, as we both know. And indeed, that packaging was, to my mind, a damn sight more kinder in the dexterity of being able to actually let you have crisps that had tasted like crisps and not like glorified extensions of a plastic factory. That bit about indeed your wife tasting crisps that did taste plasticky. I can share your wife's sentiments there. I'll tell you why. Because I bought some Asda crisps, which are what they call Smart Price. I'm sure you know the brand, Oliver, of course, being in the UK with me. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I was eating these crisps. I thought, my God, I've had some dark crisps in my time, but there was absolutely hardly any taste of crisp, but all the taste of plastic. And I'm kind of thinking, what is this? A regurgitated plastic factory for the greater betterment of giving me a cheap sensationalist laugh or something. But no, to not to laugh, but indeed to understand the fact that I think, not just as a country with us as the UK, but I think we can do a hell of a lot better actually than making our crisps taste like nothing more than plastic factories. I think we indeed, when it comes to packaging on a more serious note, I think not only in my own homeland, I hope you'd agree with me, Oliver, that I think packaging across the UK is still at epidemically ridiculous proportions of plastic content. I mean, just think about this. For how can I put this in the vocal content I want? Think about this for a minute or two. That even farmers' markets in the UK are still addicted somewhat to wrapping produce, be it fruit, be it veg, be it nuts, even be it other, what we would call healthy optioned indeed products for the greater good.
They
Be
get
it
those little
environment.
bags out, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. They do absolutely.
The cheapo plastic bags from the supermarket, which I do.
Oh, God.
I have to confess, I have to occasionally buy them for not for the bags, but for the twizzles, for the little ties, because I can't get ties from anywhere. You can't buy ties, you know that, in shops. They don't exist.
Yeah,
So.
you can't get them, can you? They're not available, are they? It is. It's a weird old world, isn't it, Oliver? Eh? Don't you think? It's a weird old world.
But I know those markets. They're so. We all walk around dangling these plastic fucking bags with.
I'm sorry,
with
I shouldn't laugh, but I had to say it. Oh God. Yeah, no.
And then we all buy these those what are they called? I can't buy them, but the big solid plastic bags that the tote bags, the big tote
my
bags,
God!
and
Yeah,
they use about 100 times more plastic than an average than any old plastic bag.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Eh? My God, Oliver, it's a mad world. These packaging capabilities, or should I say lack of packaging capabilities, I'm crying out to farmers markets in the UK alone. Will you keep wrapping your products in incessant plastic because it's the wrong way to go? Stop doing it. Stop totally missing the point of a complete opportunity to redefine what we call sustainability, not just in the UK, but on a global stage platform. We need to rein in our plastic content. And another thing I wanted to share about your wonderful points there, Oliver, before I get to you. Bear with me, brother. I will be with you in a minute on that old microphone. I will say that when it comes to the simplicity of getting the bloody boats out into the ocean, some great words there from you. Let's get these goddamn boats in the ocean, clear the oceans of the trash and the mess that is indeed absolutely full. I will kid you not. I use the words, we've got everything indeed and the kitchen sink dumped in our oceans on a conservative scale. For God's sake, get the boats out there, do the job, do what's necessary, stop gassing about it, of which half the world's political affairs people do. They gas, meeting after meeting after meeting, table after table, assembly after assembly, and achieve absolutely, pardon my language, fuck all. It is not necessary. It's not worthy. It has no integrity attached to it. It has no betterment of the greater good of getting on with the job in hand. So it is one of my curtain calls, if you will, of intent of words. I say to everyone who has the ability to get these vessels out into the ocean, do the job properly, get the plastic, the cardboard, everything, the materials which are toxic to our oceans, get on with it, do it, and stop.
That's probably BBNJ, the Sea Treaty, which has now ratified enough. I don't know. I've been going after. Oh, I just waste my time. I just go after leaders and so on. I just trying to Twitter them, and basically BBNJ that could be covered by BNJ, so it can get funds from the UN from countries who have ratified enough money, because this is about money. The reason they're not clearing it is because why should I clear up that mess? There's no money in it. But if they have enough money to do it, then there will be people who will buy into it, because that will be, pretty good money probably as well.
Absolutely.
So BBNJ will is definitely, if you know anyone in this world, anyone in this world, email them, chat with them, tweet them, anything to get them to sign up for removal of plastic, because it is, after all, the ocean. So we're talking about the ocean here. So it's all beautifully connected, and it's all very possible, and it's doable. I mean, for goodness sake, how can you just leave that much? I mean, huge islands in both the Pacific and the Atlantic of plastic. How can you do that? It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Oliver. It's appalling. It's utterly unforgivable. I mean, we're both at one with it, aren't we? You know, if you care about the environment, you really do. You pull all the stops out to get on with the process that needs doing. I am so sick and I'm so weary. I kid you not. I say this as an open passage of words. I'm sick to death of excuses, lax and lame content, and absolutely inactive behavior directed solely at stalling on every single capacity of the major things that need to be done. We have this crisis of plastics and materials and toxins in our oceans, and the way that it has been left to build and build and build is unforgivable. You know, just to use some of the words I feel about it. And indeed, I'm totally sick of hearing about anyone within any extremity of power in any country whinging about the fact that they will not get on board and do these critical jobs just because the shareholders or the balance sheets or the profit margins or the profit instigation is not right. I'm absolutely, pardon my language, I apologize. I'm so pissing sick of hearing and seeing those analogies over and over again. I can't tell. So, indeed, my rant off the soapbox assured, at least for a few seconds anyway. As we continue this conversation, Dale, thanks for being patient. Would you like to share with us on the microphone, Dale? Great to have you back.
Hey, thanks, Robert. Yeah, a while ago when Kim was talking about, when she mentioned disinformation, and started me thinking, rethinking about earlier today. I had attended a book study group that started a couple of weeks ago, but I missed the first couple of sessions because I got distracted while I was babysitting my granddaughter and forgot all about the start of the group. It's a Zoom group, and so I joined in session 3, and after I was in the climate ecology workshop yesterday, and Cam was quoting from her reading in Here Comes the Sun, the Bill McKibben book that this book study is doing. I sent her an invitation link to to come join us. And this guy is doing this has led several of these book groups over the past couple of years, and I've been at I guess maybe half a dozen of them, including a Dr. Mann book and a few others. I can't think of them right now, but he's doing Here Comes the Sun. And so we were on the third week was on section 2, which is called There's No Reason Not to Do This. And then somebody in the group later on brought up, brought up the fact that he probably should have said there's no good reason not to do this, because the group leader had a question of the day, which he always does in his book studies. When people introduce themselves, he asks everybody to answer a quick question from their experience, and usually it has to do with the book. And so they said, so in section 2, there's no reason not to do this. And so why, the question of the day is, why aren't we? Why aren't we doing it if there's no good reason not to? And so a few people mentioned disinformation, and that's why we aren't, is because the media is doing a terrible job. The deniers are out there poo-pooing renewable energy, because this book's about the solar revolution, and he does delve into wind a little bit, but it's mainly about solar in the book, and as you can tell by the title of the book. So I was glad to see, that Kim, was able to show up, and she shared during that question of the day time, and I was glad to see her. Actually, got to see her. I haven't seen anything but a picture and heard her voice, and so I actually got to see her on camera when she was sharing with the group. So I was, glad to see that. Glad you could make it, Kim. The other thing that today, and Alex mentioned it, and he's mentioned it a few times, deep ecology, and when I went to the library yesterday, I finally got down to the Vanderbilt Divinity School library again, and my main mission was to get the Leonardo Boff book that I've been talking about over the past several days, the Cry of the Earth, Cry of the Core. And so while I was there, had to take a walk around the eco theology shelves, and I had also made myself a note to get a Walter Brueggemann book or two, and I got a commentary on Genesis that he did. Walter Brueggemann is the guy that coined and wrote a book called The Prophetic Imagination, and so I've brought that into some of my sharings in Climate Crisis Club and in the Climate Ecology Workshop. And then there was another book by Brueggemann that I got. It was called Hope Restored: Biblical Imagination Against Empire. And so I thought that was, it was kind of a short book as far as his books go. So, but one of the other ones was Deep Ecology and World Religions. And so I put when Alex mentioned that again today, I put a picture of that book in the Purple Pill. And then I also took a picture and OCR'd the text of a little definition from the introduction of that book about deep ecology, so you can see that in the Purple Pill. And then there's a larger, more extensive, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs that I might put in the Climate Crisis Club and on my timeline, and then I'll repeat it in the Climate Crisis Club. Maybe later tonight, or sometime before the space tomorrow, and people have a chance to see it, and maybe spark something about deep ecology. It strikes me as significant because, to me, as a theologian person, deep ecology and deep theology are sort of have a lot of overlapping concentric circles there, because with theology, you're concerned with what's happening in the world, and the deep ecology people are concerned mainly with what's happening to the world. And so when you intersect that with theology, your what's happening in the world is what's happening to the world. So I thought that was a sort of an interesting overlap between those two. And to me, deep theology right now is deep ecology. And when you talk about deep theology, for me, it's deep. I mean, when you talk about deep ecology, for me, it's also deep theology. So just wanted to share that.
That's fascinating, Dale. I talk deep ecology. It overlaps with art. When I get into my art and music side, then I really feel the deep ecology and the reality that, which sounds like,
I mean, there's lots of lots of overlapping concentric circles in all these areas, art and music. Well, music is
absolutely, and there is, like Dr. Otis says, there's overlaps in the autism, that there are 100 plus genetic markers in autism that can be switched on, that all overlap in the same way. These patterns and cycles of nature that are all over the place. In our minds, the way our brains function, the way we function socially, the way these ecological habitats function, the repeated themes. Several of the themes that Going South brought up, I think, are really interesting. We just cannot fight about what our prediction is for collapse. If it's 0, 50, or 100%, we just don't need to fight about it. Somehow we've got to stop that. And that's sort of similar to doomer question. It's Dale has his unique kind of environmentalism. I think one of the good things, Dale, is your style, is distinctly different than everybody else. So it's easy to not bash on you. Unless Nate was around, he would probably have all kinds of objections. But you've come to this dance in a quite a different way than most of the others, via the theology. But we've got to stop it. We've got to stop I don't know what my brand of environmentalism is the best, or I'm so excited about my brand of environmentalism you have to listen. I don't know what it is we all do, and I think the deep ecology, climate justice is a very good discussion, because they're two very distinctly different brands. So it's nice and clear.
There's a Paul Hawken book that was my introduction to him, and actually Michael Dowd was the one that did the interview with Paul Hawken, that and they were talking about his that was his latest book at the time, and it's called Blessed Unrest: How the Largest Movement in the World Came into Being and Why No One Saw It Coming. And that's all. The whole thing is that there's all these movements into all coming out of and from all these different areas that we just mentioned. Ecology, economics, theology, agriculture. All that stuff that's just getting turned around and upside down by the ecological crisis. And all of these areas are in crisis, and causing deep feelings about them.
Well, I do like, Dale, that the artists are in crisis, but they're not too worried about it. They're very used to it. They're not the artists under siege. They're okay. They don't need to be defended. I think when we talk about justice, I've been doing justice all my entire adult life, and we repeat that the green transition has to be a just transition, like it's some kind of truism. That for me, this is extremely real. For my reality, when I was 4 years old, sitting in Harlem watching TV with the guys, it's been my entire reality has been justice. When I was a child in Central Park with the kids protesting the Vietnam War, this entire time, it's like a central theme for me. It's seriously real. And when it's seriously real for Dale, or it's seriously real for Kim or Oliver Robert, we have to respect that, even if it's a little different. But the thing I'm just getting at, we know we're all environmentalists. We're all different kinds of environmentalists. Somehow we have to reduce the friction among the different schools of thought. There might be real differences in theories and ideas and lifestyles, but the even more important point is the unification of all the different types of environmentalists at this time, because it is a crisis. So many of us, without the crisis of emergency, I promise you, at my age, I'd be hanging out with all the old rock and rollers, talking about old Emerson, Lake and Palmer songs all day. I know I would be at my age. I'd be retired on the porch and not doing this. But I do feel the crisis of emergency, and I really am glad to meet all of you and to carry all this going on. But the theme of the different schools of environmentalism, coexisting during a crisis, as if it was different branches of the military, the Marines and the Air Force getting along to get the mission done, while perhaps in peacetime, then they could argue about stuff. But right now, if it's deep ecology, if it's theological ecology, if you're a naturalist, if you love wildlife, if you're a citizen scientist, whatever your school of thought is, we really all need to coexist smoother, is my point, Robert. I guess I've harped on that a lot. I do enjoy Dale's book talk and thoughts endlessly, personally. by the way. It's the kind of brand intellectualism I'm used to, and I do greatly appreciate. And I do think this Boff, the great Brazilian thinker, is amazing. I also wanted to comment on, if Kim is still here, the boom buster echo she was talking about.
Yes.
The Canadian economist is only.
I think she just like dropped out the second that you mentioned her name.
She dropped down to listener.
She brought up the Canadian economist who wrote Boom Buster Echo in the 90s. That apparently was a bestseller in Canada.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, Dr. Frost there is close to 100 years old. So I did want to mention that. And the Carl Sagan, to me and Dr. Mann and many others, and just so influential in our lives. He said we could only solve the climate crisis by involving all generations. So in my kind of literal minded way, I'm like, okay, what are all the generations and how do we communicate with all of them? If you're a millennial, Kim mentioned Gen Z, which she said was Canadianism. We heard some of the Kenyans the other day going gens. They just make it one word. I wasn't quite sure. I think 21, Robert, we just met. He's a fine young man.
I know.
And of course, great friend Kip too. But the gens. But we, we have a group. This is too many years. We've talked too much. It's not going away. We're not going away. We're not stopping this. This is the way of life. This is our solution. This is our cafe and our bar and our club. And it's
we
only
will
going to get
continue,
better, Robert. And you have put a lot of work into this, as has Kim.
Everyone else. Will continue we will redefine obstacles, Alex. Great words there from you, brother. Because I'm totally committed and determined to bring as many hearts, minds, actions, and indeed new principles of responsibility to the table within my own room spaces, as I know Kim does within the Climate and Ecology Workshop with Sal, as I know everyone who hosts does with you, Alex, the Climate Crisis Club live space on a Saturday. It will be broadcast tomorrow, again, doing what we do best. Digital space unity with people who are like-minded, with a total at one balance with nature, with the environment, with ecology, with democracy, with human rights justice, with climate justice, with all those entwined principles that make everything so absolutely, how can I put this, at one in the way that it needs to be. I want to also thank you, Dale, indeed. I know Alex was giving you some appreciation, thanking you there for your content. I want to do likewise, Dale. I'm totally at one with you. I was listening with fascination. I think you know, Dale, how much I am at one with you, brother, in your mindset, your ideals, your summings up of indeed situations to do with the gravitas of the ongoing situations, as indeed they are all entwined. Indeed, deep ecology, theological, deep ecology, indeed, they're all entwined mechanisms, and they all are, to my mind, needed to be understood by the greatest majority on a blanket coverage basis of people as being entwined with each other. Deep ecology, theological ecology, yes, indeed, at one with those principles in their entirety, because you cannot see one without seeing the other. If you fail to see the other, you fail not to understand both of them in their entirety, in their right context, in their right balance, in the way that they actually describe to you the person, as the educational content of what is being described to you is giving you what it is as you read it. It's vital that we see between the lines. It's vital we understand this. I'm saying that, speaking comparatively, as you probably know I do, probably famous for saying that by now, talking about the public on the global scale. I think it would be rather fascinating, and I would like indeed to actually see the public understanding and talking about, if I can put it like this. I would like to see the public taking on board deep theological ecology and deep green ecology. I would like to see the public having discussions about it on a large scale. I think it would be very beneficial. I think it would be very eye-opening, because those words are not used often enough. Eye-opening. So many situations within the climate environmental emergency are indeed eye-openers, but so many discussions to do with talking about it are these sort of discussions, the discussions and indeed the content that Dale shares with us, that Going South shares with us, indeed Kim shares with us, Oliver shares with us, because as I've said so many times before, we are all unique individuals. We have our own unique ways of how we embrace and are educated and indeed share and talk about ecology, environment, climate, democracy, human rights, etc., etc. We all have our own unique ways. Let us continue to listen to everything that we indeed have in our multiple different contexts of situations and bring it, how I could describe this, on an ongoing basis in ways that can educate and empower as many people as possible, is a good way of me describing this. Indeed, I want to take a pause. Oliver, want to welcome you back on the microphone.
Thanks, Robert.
I know
Yeah,
you got
this is just an add-on to the fractiousness between environmentalists generally, and it's I was looking at, there's a new film about Orwell. It's a documentary film, and it's from Haitian filmmaker Raoul Peck, and also Alex Gibney as well. They've done a kind of double act on it, which is often works really well. And apparently, and looking at what's on offer from the the pundits, it looks really good, really good. The point being that we have to be very, very, very in arms together, strong, tight, and supportive, because as we well know, the authorities that there are out there are trying to make life hell for everybody, but in particular for, let's say, the left or the middle left. And at the same time, if there is a some kind of social collapse of some sort, which is probably quite likely, you may think that oh, it's just numbers, we just lose a few people and then it'll all settle down again. I think we're forgetting that what's going to happen straight away is all the people that have been denying all of this havoc that we know has been going on, and we've been plotting it for years and years, for God's sake. They're going to turn around and say, oh, nothing to do with us. We were nothing to do with that. But by the way, we will be in charge from now on, and they will. They will stamp down, and that's happening already. You can just see it happening. So this is not something that is going to happen. It is clearly happening at pace already. So yes, we have to be very tight. We have to be very supportive. We have to be ready and prepared for anything that is thrown at us, because it's not just going to be about the terrible weather events and people being killed by it, not in the rich north mostly, but yep, some as well. It's going to be about the authorities coming down really hard in order just to save themselves and to crush every kind of weak, fractured opposition to them. So we have to be strong and we have to be ready for them. It's really that simple. We have to be more than just environmentalists from now on. We really do have to be warriors. So, and most of that warrior ring is going to be in the head, because don't forget, we've also got the jump start on them, because they are idiots and they've been ignoring or decrying the climate crisis for 30, 40 years already. So we do actually have the jump on them. Remember that, people. It's important. Okay. Thank you, Robert.
It is
thanks.
Ollie, that ecology as a more popular phenomena, just a more accepted general social phenomena. And it is the new climate war. It is big oil with their $12 trillion a year. That really suppresses stuff in the conversation. It's an amazing power they have. But man is correct in his sort of terrier, going after it mentality. And There's no doubt, Oliver, that Raoul Peck is one of the world's 10 best filmmakers. He's fantastic, and I have no question that he'll do a bang up job on Orwell, who clearly is the writer for these times of disinformation. But again, the future, we're going to have our betting pool. What are the odds of collapse? If you think there's 100% chance of collapse, then what do you care about disinformation today? We're all going to collapse. It does seem that this instinctive outcome that you see colors your thoughts in the present. I am so the science background. It's like a religion. It's a grounding. The science hill I'm dying on, sort of prevents me from being too worried about if there's a 0% or 100% chance of collapse. You want to have the same result now in the present, no matter what the future chance of collapse is. If you heat your water and it's 35 degrees C, you want that number. So the science keeps one very objective. I don't know who watched Man and Hotez last night in the bookshop in Washington, D.C. They're getting better as a team. But what was interesting to me were the questions from the people in the bookshop. Every single one of them, about 8 people came up to talk and ask Man Hotez questions. Every single one of them were scientists, and most of them were scientists who'd just been fired because of the government shutdown. But there was one Asian American guy, young guy, a physicist from the Goddard Institute there near Columbia, and he was fascinating and brand new to me. And Science Under Siege. He was an ultra logical guy, like Spocker Data, and the total white, jacket scientist, totally logical, just not social at all, not concerned with irrational society, politicians, journalists, yellow journalism, lies, disinformation, totally illogical scientist. And it's like he had just woken up that week. Like these people are crazy. They're a threat to my existential survival. Like in his super hyper logical world, Man and Hotez are fairly social and out there in the big world with all the people. This guy was straight out of the lab, not much different from a computer, hyper logical, and coming out in the daylight with his eyes blinking. He was suddenly worried. The Science Under Siege. So it was a fascinating little bit, but to see a whole lot of scientists, like at least 8 scientists, standing up and being worried about the fate of the nation, the fate of the world. So it was Science Under Siege for real. Robert, I know you need to get your beauty sleep at some time. This event here should not keep you awake.
No problem about that, Alex. It is a Friday. And indeed, I am enjoying this conversation on the Friday segment immensely. So I'll be probably wrapping up this room space, I would imagine, about between 12:15 and 25 past 12 in the morning, UK time. As indeed it is, as I've said, it's been a great conversation. So I have wanted to make sure that I keep the room open for as long as possible to have as many people as possible be able to join us and gain an insight into what we're talking about. So all good. It's only coming up to 5 to 12 midnight here anyway at the moment. So we will continue, Alex, indeed, if you're okay to continue with me as co-host.
Yeah, sure.
We will
do those marathon climate spaces. We get them started, get everybody talking. And the goal so much is not among us environmentalists, but those who are green adjacent next door. They like their walk in the park. They like their dog. They like to cook. They like their books. They like Dale mentioned the link to the Climate Book Club. It is a few links. Somebody like our good friend Puppy, you know, the lawyer in the Pacific Northwest. She has a daughter who's an environmental PhD, and just a little nudge for many of these people that are green adjacent. Just getting to the next level of that video game. You know, from taking walks on the beach with the dog to reading Here Comes the Sun, to getting a little more up in arms, a little more passionate about the subject. I know that, you know, my left wing American artist friends are so good on racism and hatred. They're so good on that topic. Why ecology and environmentalism, they have such a hard time grasping it. It's like there's a block in the society. And my guys too tend to be very, very social. They're you know, they've been playing gigs every Friday night for the last 30 years, chatting to people. They're you know, perhaps it goes backwards where the environmentalists have some problems with socializing sometimes. The guys who are super good at socializing have trouble with environmentalism. They can't sit still and just be with the trees for a while. I don't know.
Just actually thinking, Alex, that I was thinking about words that were mentioned and have been numerous occasions, and not least on tonight's affairs. I'm kind of thinking about the fact that the points, critical points, have been made by Kim, Dale, I think, going south, and Oliver as well, about the fact, and indeed yourself, Alex, that we need to be able to recognize that we're all on the same side with each other. We're not enemies. Although we have different styles, yes, I grant you, of environmentalism, although we come from different backgrounds and we say things in different ways, our languages can even be different. Our communicative efforts are not all the same, are different, indeed, slightly different, some more so in others. At the end of the day, I think it does us damage when we're hostile to each other, unnecessarily, great damage. I think it does great damage.
I would submit to you, Robert, that by now we're pretty much used to all our cultural differences. If Dr. Khan is Muslim in Pakistan, I think we're all used to that at this point. If Kiptu is from Kenya, I think it's literally our brands of environmentalism that we're not used to.
All the I think I want to get with, I do want to get to the crux of that, because that was the core of what my issue was.
Cool.
You know, vocally, it's our brands of environmentalism, I think, that are causing some heated, hot under the collar situations. I still believe that to be the case. And I do continue to think that it's because we have our different concepts, our different brands of environmentalism, some of us milder and some of us stronger, some of us more forthright and some of us not. I will say that I think that if we can stay united under this, what I call these forceful waves of intent, if I can put it like that, if we can continue to be friendly, united, and have that respect there, realizing that indeed those branches of ourselves are different because we are individuals and different people. It's got to be to the greater good of continuing to stay unified, stay family, stay focused, and stay orientated, even, if I get my word out right. So my vital points there on the subject of unity. I've always believed in unity for every single person in environmentalism. I stand by that with every breath I have in me. Unity is key here. Indeed, building lifelong friendships on this precious passage of unity is absolutely essential. We care deeply about what we do with our individual actions. I care deeply about each and every one of you as people. I promise you that. I always have. I always will. I've never, ever had any disloyalty or disunity with any single environmentalist or person, even casually involved in environmentalism, I might add, anywhere on the planet, on the globe. Let me take a pause while I bring this request up, and hopefully we can bring a request for Abu. to hopefully speak in a minute as we continue this conversation, which has been a very dexterous and brilliant one, I have to say. And it's conversations like these with friends, with colleagues, with people that you truly know, love, and appreciate that make this entire environmentalism crusade, if I can put it like that, so absolutely, totally unified and worthwhile in its entirety. It's a great joy for me to be able to share comments and share discussion like this with people who I respect right to the last particle and core, and will always do so because I feel we have these precious connections with us as people. We are a digital family. It's funny using the word digital and family together, but it is very much the case that we are a digital family in our entirety, and we continue to grow like a family grows. New faces, new ways of communicating, new people, new ideas, new actions. And I am absolutely at one. Every single time I see a new environmentalist face that I've not heard of, or group involved in tree planting actions, seedling actions, actions for the greater good of irrigation of crops. Actions to stop starvation, actions to plant crops on a large scale, with irrigative measures that save mass starvation. I will honestly say that I'm totally empowered and heartened by such actions, and I will always continue to be so. We need so many environmental champions on this earth because we have indeed an earth in turmoil. We have communities in turmoil. We have towns and cities, hamlets and villages in turmoil. Even the smallest dwellings of where there is human life on this earth are in turmoil. Some of those people who are not fully aware of what the word turmoil means out of this room space, I will put it like this. Every single particle of our existences are continuing to hang in there by a thread, but it's up to us collectively to be able to recognize the difficulties, the challenges, the atrocities, I might add, what is going on in the war zone regions alone, and indeed the fundamental situations which can bring unity and balance. To bring that balance, though, you have to have a balanced mind of seeing things. You have to be all encompassing of being what I would call understanding enough to realize that every person plays a part here in the environmental championing message. They always did and they always will. Our environmental champions are spread out across our planet, but there is one fundamental ideal that will always ring true for all of them. They are beacons of goodness, of decency, of democracy, of indeed bringing communities together, and they will always be that way because those beacons, those shining lights of being able to champion environmentalism in all the right ways, are to me the very lifeblood, the pulse, the core, the veins, the blood that flows through our environmental work in its entirety, and will no doubtless continue to be so. We need people dedicated to the cause. We need different types of individual, people who are, yes, entirely different in their environmental ways of being and doing and acting and seeing and talking and educating. It's all to the greater good. It's all to that rich tapestry of environmentalism, if I can put it like that, because indeed it is a tapestry. It's an ongoing, as I've used these words so often, but they do fit the bill, a labor of love, of intent, of indeed goodness, because the championing of our environments must not be left to chance. We must never get into a context where we deny the fundamental goodness of being able to act now rather than repent and see utter devastation of tomorrow if we hadn't acted. There is so much to act upon for all the right ways across our planet and continues to be so. We have more instability, degradation, toxicity within our global political affairs and governments, and indeed our paymasters, than we have ever done in history. It's vital we remain indeed a totally unbreakable, if I can use that word. I think it suits it rather well. Unbreakable, environmentally conscious awareness throughout us as human beings, because as I use these words a lot too, the greater good is in very short supply in certain areas on our planet, and indeed more than certain areas. There are large geographical scales and environments, and indeed countries that need that greater good element continually thrust at the very forefront of being able to redevelop for not just now, but for our futures, understand what is now needed to be able to redevelop in a sustainable way, because sustainable practices can only be put there if we have the mental discipline and the mental capability and understanding and responsibility to be able to make them there, not just for now, but for all future abilities and reference of such. I keep talking about the inadequacies of policies that continue to drag us down on this planet. There are so many. I could probably have hours and hours of discussion for what I fundamentally feel now need to be totally enveloped, and reworkings of all policies on earth that totally fail us as human beings, whatever our country, whatever our community, wherever we are, no matter whether it's a built-up area in our townscapes or totally rural in the most, what I call the remote backyards, indeed, of still the utopia of which our planet undoubtedly is. Because we do live in our own little pockets of utopias across this earth, and we will continue to do so. Our little safe havens, as I call them, our little abilities to be able to stay connected to nature for all the right reasons because of how much our hearts beat at one with nature. Nature in its entirety for the public in its entirety, yes, but only as nature intended, not as the destroyers want to shape and change it for theirs. It's something we continue to have the pulse on, and undoubtedly will. But we must always remember that while we know that we must not be complacent in any single environmental category, it is the kiss of death for complacency to creep in. I've seen it so many times before. I continue to see it now. We have our ongoing challenges, yes, but our challenges are immense and they are wide scale. We never must take our finger off the pulse. I certainly know that we don't do that in the Climate Crisis Club. Dear me, no. We are committed to unity, environmental change, and safeguarding for all the right reasons for everybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on the planet. We are there for you, no matter what, as indeed I am for all of you within these room spaces I've created, which indeed will be broadcast to as many as possible on an ongoing nature. I believe in human rights for all, not just for a few 100,000, not just for a few million, not just for a few billion, but for everybody, for 8+ billion people. Human rights are paramount, they are needed, they are vital, they are the thread of our entire existence. They bind everything together, because without human rights, and indeed theological practices of which Dale is a master of, without deep green ecology, of which my dear friend Going South is a master of, we will not be able to continue fighting this good fight together in total unity. We all have our own unique ways of being able to communicate what we feel is the ongoing challenges and the rebuilding of our communities and our societies to be at one. It's why I'm fascinated, enveloped, and indeed deeply grateful for everyone's contributions in these room spaces, of which I created with the Climate and Human Rights Cafe, Indigenous Voices, because every single person's voice is absolutely vital. I couldn't do this environmental work without you, because together, me and you, we are all family, and we always will be. And I'm so deeply humbled and appreciative indeed of everyone's presence. Indeed, this room space has been a deeply educative one and wonderful space for communicating ongoing thoughts, ideals, efforts, understandings, and the challenges of which we continue to face daily with every single aspect of what we are having to endure within our communities. A reshaping of priorities, yes, but in all the right ways, of course, because if you leave one thing out, it is to the detriment of the other. I continue to say this, and while I take a pause, Oliver, I want to hand you the microphone, brother. What would you like again to share with us?
Oh, just to reiterate this idea that you've got the deep green ecologists and environmentalists at the front of the class, really concentrating on the work. Sometimes you've got the kind of like the more boisterous kids at the back throwing paper darts and on their Walkmans, it would have been back then. But at the same time, different people are drawn to different jobs, if you like. Alex mentioned about we're basically kind of forming up all these different parts of the service, the I'm not going to say the armed service, but of the services, if you like. We're forming up these various different specialities and aspects to the service. Well, it's the same with the kids who want to play rock and roll and all the rest of it. They're obviously going to be the ones who are particularly good at climate justice and civil justice and so on and so forth. That's what they're going to be drawn to. That's what's going to interest them. They're not necessarily going to have time for the massive educational input of long-term environmentalism and ecology and so on. So yeah, it's find the specialities, but really be linked arms here, people, okay? Because the shit is going to fly soon, much worse than it is now. It's very clear. This is going to be the response to the stuff that starts to go really quite radically wrong. I'm not saying it's going to go completely wrong and everything's going to fall apart completely, because I don't necessarily buy that either, and I prefer not to buy it. I prefer to stay in the realm of, if we keep working at it, then it will lessen the damage. But at the same time, the people who are supposedly in charge, and that includes the political parties, authorities, and so on, they don't give a shit about that. They don't care about you. All they care about is themselves. All they care about is their position of power, retaining it come what may, and at the same time, in this peculiar manner that they have of actually decrying the whole climate crisis. It's a wicked thing to do. It's really shocking. Jane Goodall, who died yesterday, I think yesterday, past the day before yesterday, she had it in a kind of sweet harmony. She could see all of it very clearly. She could see just how the leaders of countries, most of them, the worst ones particularly, they act like the alpha chimp, trying to show off and grab all the attention. And I'm the guy around here, I'm in charge. And she had a very good view on all of this that was so refreshing. So I hope she's looking out for us as well. You know what I mean? I hope she
Yeah,
does.
that was something, Oliver. On Wednesday, I announced Jane Goodall's passing live. Robert and I were doing a space, and it really did shut both of us up for a moment. The only time ever, deeply felt. Your comment about those who are ultra selfish, they're the people who really don't understand deep ecology. The ones who are ultra selfish, looking out for their own personal treasure.
Yeah, but they're going to be the ones that come down hardest. They're going to come down hardest. That's the problem.
Exactly. They have zero understanding of deep ecology. And I'm really quite taken with this idea of the eternally recurrent collapse. That is what the human future would be. A collapse, build up the technology, collapse again, build up the technology, collapse again. So it's really time.
But with diminishing returns, but with very diminishing returns on the ecology.
Absolutely.
That's the trouble. It would have there would be less and less wildlife. There would be less and less ecology. It would diminish and diminish and diminish until it came to a time of memory that people could only remember that there was these lovely things, but they wouldn't be bothered to actually try and build them up again. They would build up their own power bases or the technology or whatever. It's enough to survive and keep going.
But we have our existential moment of now, this here and now that we stand on, our present, our wisdom, our work we've gotten to here. And the thing I keep talking about, the psychological assumption that we're behaving like our parents and grandparents coping with the big crisis, and they never had a digital nothing. The parents and grandparents, when they, in World War II, there was no digital media. We do have this amazing tool that Oliver's selfish people really can't use against us, perhaps the way they would have against the parents and grandparents manipulated them and leveraged them. We really have a strong defense against those people with our unity here, reinforcing each other, just like Andrea says. She doesn't meet anybody in her day-to-day life that knows what she's talking about. And back in the day, they could have leveraged her into more despair and into more useless behavior, so she wouldn't have been such an enemy. But today, we can prop Andrea up, cheer her up, support her, cheer her on, and it doesn't matter that we don't meet her in person. And we know she's a force of nature.
Yes.
She's a powerhouse.
She's a force of nature.
She just needs a little cheering on from the distance, and she's fine. Not much. So it takes like an armed forces, and Oliver was mentioning like an army, and Dr. Mann has been talking that way. And I grew up playing chess and war games as a kid. I did play the Lord of the Rings war game by SBI, and I used to go to the SBI offices when I was a teenager in New York City, where they made the war games, with the 20-sided dice and the hexagonal boards and all that. And Dr. Mann went to see war games when he was about 12 years old. It seemed to have made a great impression on him. So in many ways, we can change this all to game theory, and it helps with the digital format. We all have our little piece and do our little job. But that idea of the different, if you're fictional, if you're a mystic, if you're a scientist, whatever your gig is, whatever your department is, for us to all figure out how to work together smoothly. I don't know. It seems to me one of the biggest issues, that I think we have enough energy and enough money and enough numbers of people. When you start talking about the green parties of the world and Greenpeace and Sierra Club and Audubon Society and I don't know who else, but when you add them all together, it's really quite a huge block with a lot of money in it. And I know Ted Turner, the billionaire, loves his horses and his land. They love all that stuff, and there just has to be a path forward. I don't know why in the path forward, the prognosis. When I saw Elliot's tweet lately, I saw Lyle Lewis's tweet lately. They have a very negative prognosis. That's their. We know the Oliver Selfish people have a very optimistic prognosis. And I feel that the reality is probably somewhere in the middle there, the basic Greek theory of moderation. And whatever our instinct is for the prognosis.
I tell you something, actually, Alex. My prognosis, as if anyone didn't already know from my extensive vocal content on this X platform, my prognosis is actually I have an optimistic mind to the fact of we can retrieve, or shall I put it, yes, in those vocal terms, we can what I consider to be we can rein in, if I can put it like that, much of what could be a mass, not just democratic collapse, but a social collapse. I think we could save and spare ourselves a lot of that if we mentally prepare ourselves with a responsibility of content of thinking now, rather than waiting until full-blown society or indeed systemic collapse ensues, if I can put it like that. I've never thought that.
Absolutely, Robert. We have to do that.
I thank you. Because I'm glad you're at one with me.
Because the people who have the power and the money and the politics now, all over the world, but particularly obviously in America at the moment, it's, oh my God, it's they are not going to spare us. They're not going to spare the good people, the meek people, the quiet people, the people on the left, the people on the center. They're not going to spare them. The people of color, the people of immigrants. Oh my God, no! You can see what's happening already.
Absolutely.
They're not going to spare anybody. All they are interested in is themselves. All they're interested is saving their own skins and their own power bases, and they will do it. They will do it, as they are already, through this authoritarian fascism, basically. I mean, you can just see it slowly and now more rapidly unwinding. So you're absolutely right. We must be prepared. We must be prepared.
I want to bring up the point, guys, that in the, all of us over 40, north of 40, the 70s and 80s, the notion of collapse. In the 1970s and the 1980s, you don't see the collapse every second of the day, like live video from the collapse by eyewitnesses. The Gaza itself as a mini collapse, we've experienced the collapse of Gaza like every second intimately, every video and every photograph, and talking to people live from there, that the collapse is going to be televised second by second, 24/7 by everyone around the world. And I think for us old people, we instinctively think like the 1970s, 1980s, but in reality, we have instant feedback. It is not the 1980s, that we've got people with devices on the ground where the collapse is taking place. When it started 3 seconds ago, they're already filming it. And I do think of Julian. Julian was on vacation in Mexico this summer, and the flood came to his front door. Right, he had his cell phone out taking a video of the flood. And I think when the climate crisis comes to our front door, like it did to Julian, I'm sure Going South feels it. He's in a prime location there. That it's real, and we need more people to experience the reality of the climate crisis and the environmental polycrisis. They simply have to experience it tangibly. We don't need to. We can argue about what we've experienced and the future is, but we don't need to experience it anymore. We get it, But we need more people out there to feel that experience, that this is tangible and real. When the hairs go up on your back and you're like, oh no, this is really happening. They need that experience to go through that. Like the ice is melting and the seas are rising and the temperature's rising and they're killing all the trees and whales and everybody. They need to have the tangible feeling. And it's our job to communicate that to them in some way with all our skills.
Absolutely. No, it's this is that tangibility, as you mentioned, Alex. It will be ripe for an ongoing topic of conversation. Incidentally, to everyone, we will be back, all being well. Touch wood as I do to my head. Back on Monday evening with a bit of luck, 9 to 9:30 p.m. If you'd like to join me again for more conversation on everything that has been heard, talked about, and indeed broadcast tonight alone, and a lot more. As indeed I like to keep the content of conversation flowing, relevant, buoyant, and indeed fresh as well, amongst many other things, because gaining the imagination of people who are not yet remotely interested in anything to do with ecology or environment or climate or anything to do with the threads of everything that holds those things in place is vital in gaining new faces, new friends, and new passages of unity, if you will. I'm going to take one more hand. Going South, you will truly be it, my friend, and then I will close this room space for tonight's proceedings as we get to about 25 past 12 midnight UK my time. Going South, microphone is yours, brother. What would you like to share with us to call us out, if you will, in communication? Hope you've got a connection.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Robert.
Going South.
Yeah, I've been thinking more about what Kim said earlier. Is Kim gone?
She has gone now, yeah.
Well, her words and her spirit lives on, right? So I've been thinking more about that, and it's like, the way I understand, language and discourse analysis and why people say stuff. I think she made a very good point, and I think it's kind of an indication. You know, when somebody says in 2025 to let's say the social justice crowd, right? I think we all have a picture in our minds of who they are, how they look, and what they work for, and they have good, agendas and stuff. When it has to be said, I think Kim said it because in some cases it has to be said in a discussion with them or in a conversation among them, that we need to also look at this other thing, this ecology thing, right? Because otherwise all our social struggles will be for naught, right? We can't have equal this or equal that if we don't have food and water, for instance, right? So, and I, as an old man, as a becoming of age, maybe becoming an elder in some younger people's minds. I don't think that happened yet, but never say never. I think we have to remember why that situation is or was what it is. It's because of what I call the kind of the pretenders syndrome, right? Because you have this IPCC, you have this let's call it Greenpeace as a general term. You have all of these UN climate, UN environment. You have all of these pretenders who give the impression to the rest of society that we're handling that. It's in our hands. It's in good hands. It's almost like, talking about Gaza. I've worked actually for 1 year at the UN office in Oslo, Norway, right? So I know kind of the inside story of the United Nations. And the very first, special project or institution or whatever inside the UN was, I can't remember the acronym, but it's something about help Palestinians return to their lands that they were evicted from by the ... state. And
Two-state
that
country.
institution. No,
Oh, right.
I'm talking about the Zionist state, right? So that institution within the UN, UNWRA or whatever, they have succeeded in absolutely nothing in 70 or 80 years, right? Absolutely nothing. They've been there. A lot of people thought, they're handling that, so we don't have to do it. It's already being discussed over there. And it's kind of a parallel situation with the UN Environment Protection or whatever, and the COPs and the IPCC. To those people who are socialist youth in Norway, red youth, Labour Party youth, whatever, kind of on the social justice side of things, they all believe that no, we should just focus on anti-racism and all of these good causes, because the UN itself is handling environment and climate, right? So obviously that is in good hands, and it's not. It's never been. It's like Greta Thunberg said: people are doing nothing. The grown-ups have been doing nothing for 50 odd years, and so I understand why they need to be reminded that if we don't put part of our struggle on the ecological side, there won't be anything to fight over within the social or within the societal side of things. There won't be equal wage or whatever, right? Because society is gone; it's not there anymore. It's gone out into the fjord in an avalanche. Right. So that is kind of the pain of being an elder, pain of being old, because you know these things, you know why it turned out that way, you know how people were deceived, you know how even I believed in the fucking IPCC for 5 or 10 years, right? And I consider myself one of the most conscious people in that area since I was a teenager. But I was fooled by them. I thought, okay, the UN, the fucking UN is handling this. Great, right? And then people like to call us disillusioned and like to call us, you know, you see, you have a dark vision of this. Yes, for a very good reason. I've seen these people claim things and then crash down like, you know, a towel, up like a lion, down like a towel, or whatever they say in Norwegian. And, you know, we should have absolutely no faith in these leaders whatsoever, because that is what history has taught us. And the last thing I heard about from America, from one of the founders of Wikipedia, Wikipedia is occupied by the CIA, right? By the intelligence services. So even when there's no war, some odd years when there's no war, the intelligence services are making sure that, for instance, the Gaza articles, the articles about different conflicts and wars, they are kept in a strictly warmonger narrative, right? So even in peacetime, the short periods of peace we have, we are not allowed to even correct the narratives of the bombing of Libya, for instance, just taking a bad example, because these are occupied zones by the Central Intelligence Agency. So all of these narratives, all of these deceptions, they are allowed to stand. And that is why it's kind of a conflict of narratives and of truths. And if we don't correct them, then 80% of the young population in Norway will go on to think that the climate and ecology is in good hands, which is absolutely a lie. So that is kind of, you know, kind of the sorrow or the mourning of becoming of age, that you know these things, you know how they panned out, and you know, people can throw words and call each other names and stuff, but it's basically a tragedy. And you know, the kind of the big brother of Professor Arne Næss, the eco-philosopher, was Peter Wessel Zapfe, who had an even darker view of humanity. And his book is basically called On the Tragic, right? That's sort of the tragedy concept from Greek plays, you know, from Greek drama. And his view was that humanity was inherently a tragic species because of our abilities and because of our, you know, ability to understand and to demand meaning from the universe. And you know, we're kind of destroying ourselves because we are so over-equipped, because we are so clever, because we are so good at fucking everything, and that is kind of our demise. So that's kind of the positive note going out.
No,
you give me the mic, you know what you
yeah,
want,
I
right?
do go into.
But I would like to wish everybody a pleasant new week or weekend, and enjoy the autumn. Enjoy the storms if it's storming around you.
Yeah, we got
Remember,
one
it's also a part of
Yes, we have one of you.
a part of nature. It's a part of nature and a part of autumn to have these storms. It's not only a climate thing, right? It used to be, I think, every fall, every autumn. And you know, just touch base and live a little and get some wind and some rain in your face, right? It's great.
Absolutely,
Thank
man.
you.
The Pretenders is a good one. I don't think any of us have any faith in governments, the IPCC or Microsoft to save us. But they do exist, and we have to work with them. I think we all are specialists. We're reading the news all day on what the UN said or somebody said. It's in taking, as Going South says, becoming an elder is taking responsibility. These other people don't know. We know. We take responsibility. So we're forced to work with the pretenders. We're not going to declare war on them, get the guns and bombs out and attack them. We have to work with the IPCC, the UN, the US government, the EU. And those people rotate out of those offices. Guterres will be gone in 27. The Trump will be gone in 29. These people rotate out of the offices, but the office stays there and will continue on. I don't think any of our hope really is that the IPCC or the UN will save us. I don't think anybody in the environmental community actually believes that. But the reality on the ground is we do have to work with them. They do exist, and they are the U.S. government is a force we have to work with.
Indeed, Alex, we do have to work with them, but indeed, it's a working situation of understanding that their ability to actually act for the greater good is non-existent under the present systems of which they themselves have set the whole thing up. If I can put it
one more point, Robert, is to let, if you're deep in the deep ecology zone, if you're a poet or a scientist deep in that zone, let the social justice workers handle their part of the equation. Part of this is trusting your colleagues here in the environmental struggle to do their specialty. We instinctively trust the scientists, the biologists doing their work, trust the social justice warriors. Robert and I meet people like Morningstar. She's at it 24/7, fighting for human rights. Just incredible work. So it's been a joy to send her a few tips and communicate with her a little bit. But we do have to trust all the different departments. So if such social justice warrioring isn't what you're trained in, isn't what you've been doing for decades, standing in the rain, trying to free Kurdistan, talking to somebody who doesn't speak one word of any language you have in something in common, but you're still laughing and fighting for equal rights. We have to trust all the different departments. We trust Dale. We don't think he's going to give us the wrong part of the scripture or something, make stuff up. We trust that what he tells us. We have to trust all the different departments in good faith. And that does include the social justice department. They know their stuff. They've been battling for decades. And to get them into environmental justice is a huge coup. Someone like Cuppy, from her feminism, from her pro-vaccine, from her fighting for Ukraine, or Hotez himself is gigantic, who says he's not political. We'll have Peter Hotez so political by next week. But we trust him to do his job. If you want a vaccine for something, the man made the COVID vaccine and didn't charge any money for it. We got to trust our colleagues here. So, Robert, you got to get to bed, man. You need beauty sleep, man.
You're not wrong, actually, Alex. You're not wrong. Indeed, beauty sleep my way. I'll be joining you tomorrow, brother, with the Climate Crisis Club. Indeed, looking forward to it. As my space is hopefully broadcast to everyone again on Monday between 9 and 9:30 p.m. UK time. As I close this space, 12:35 a.m. in the morning here. It's a nice little old late one, as they say, in that quaint old English way of language, as you will. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Indeed, Dale, Oliver, Going South, Annette, Nephris, Bluey, Violet, Director Wanja. Thank you so much for staying with me to the end. Deeply appreciated your presence, your words. Indeed, content, everything that you've shared, truly wonderful, inspirational stuff. As always, I thank you sincerely for that. And thank you sincerely, brother Alex, for co-hosting with me. Deeply appreciated, brother. Thanks again for that. As indeed, I take my bow on curtain stage of the events in this room space for a Friday. Thanks again, everyone. Just sending blessings, love, keep safe and warm support, indeed. And a good morning and good night, indeed, across your geographical locations. Thanks again. Hopefully catch up with you on Monday, and indeed definitely catch up with you tomorrow. However, many of you can make the Climate Crisis Club live meeting on a Saturday. Until then, take care.